Live everywhere.
Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, April 16th, 2018. Just a quick check of the old computer to figure out what the date is, just to be sure I'm grounded. We can't really be sure. I guess you can never really be sure. Relative to so many other things. What time is it? Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? If so, I think we've used this joke before. We can't imagine why, except, of course, the time has come to start the show. Daily Kos Radio is live now, whether the song says so or not, in the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, Bill says. Kagro X, me, David Waldman, skips the Boston Marathon so he won't miss today's broadcast. True. Absolutely. This represents, I guess, the 49th year that I have skipped the marathon. And it's about the same number of years that I have missed the cut for the U.S. Open as well, so that's too bad. Hasn't even happened yet, but I'm pretty certain you can bet the farm on it. I'm not going to qualify for the Open this year. I should probably play golf if I want to make it at some point. I'll see if I can find the time to do it. Once Donald Trump is in jail, I suppose, there'll be plenty of opportunity to play golf. It won't be so crowded around here, and I can go ahead and do that. We can hope against hope. Why not? And it does seem like a weird week coming up. It is the 65th week of the Presidential Apprentice, of course, the Donald Trump administration, such as it is. I guess it's pointless to keep counting the weeks, I suppose. It's just, I don't know. Once in a while, it serves to remind us how far removed or how close we once were to living in a country with an actual government. This does feel like a strange week. The weekend was terrible for Donald Trump, although I think he's making up for it by playing golf today. If I read correctly, Scout Finch did mention, Jen told us earlier today, and I think I retweeted it earlier too, so we can kind of scroll back and see if I can find that. But I think he's staying down in Florida this Monday, which is not a bad choice. It's kind of miserable and cold up here. I mean, you're supposed to be president of the United States, but whatever. We've already accepted that that's not actually the case. And so he's staying down in Florida and golfing and spending Monday at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, here Jen Hayden's tweet from yesterday, I guess, about 12 hours ago, retweeting Kyle Griffin, of course, because every third tweet, I think, is a retweet of Kyle Griffin, who says Trump should arrive at Mar-a-Lago a little after 3 p.m. tomorrow. So let's see. This was yesterday's tweet. Oh, so he's not there yet. Wow. According to the White House schedule, he arrives at Mar-a-Lago a little after 3 p.m. today. As of now, there's nothing on his schedule after that. It's Monday. It's not a holiday. It's not even a teacher work day. No matter where you go to school. I don't know. Somewhere maybe perhaps that's the case. That's it. Barron has a teacher work day. Is that what's happening? I don't know. He's decided to go on a Monday and go golfing. We're going to use the Monday to catch up on the news because that's what regular people do. They wake up on a Monday and go to work. Not Donald Trump, but okay. Because he doesn't have time for that, as you know, he promised during the campaign. One of 10,000 things that he said during the campaign, or even just the other day, basically. I wouldn't be surprised if you asked him now, he'd probably tell you he's not playing golf these days. I don't know. Anyway, there's plenty of other news. The weekend was terrible for him, in particular for Michael Cohen. I think that guy's probably going to jail. Not likely to give up Trump along the way intentionally, but he might step in a trap accidentally. Greg Dworkin is here to help us round up the weekend news. And, I don't know. Let's do that then. That seems like it makes a hell of a lot of sense given the current situation. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. How are you? I was going to, but my Skype here seems to have reset itself, and so I've lost all of the things I've sent you. I don't know why it does that, but it does that on occasion.
Let me see if I have them.
I have them here. I just found them, but it's like all of it. Where'd they go? And now they're on the other side of the page. And what's going on?
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
It's there's some very important things happening here on the domestic front that I need to talk about first.
Okay, like your house or the country?
Yeah, no, my house.
Okay, all right.
I mean, the important stuff.
Right,
Right?
all right.
So I sent my four-legged doorbell, Abby, out on patrol this morning
Oh, okay.
just to make sure the grounds were clear
Yes.
prior to the show. And lo and behold, she caught a rat.
Oh.
Ratus, Norwegian rat, brown rat.
Oh.
We have them here. You know, they live outside, hopefully in the woods and far away from me. This is the second one that she's caught, though. She's a very fast dog. And, of course, the problem was that I had a little bit of trouble convincing her that the treat that I had in my hand was way more fun to play with than the rat, which was now an ex-rat. And so it's raining here. It's cold. Yeah. It's 36 degrees, and it's one of those cold spring rains that just goes right through your clothes. And here I am chasing the dog in my boots. And I got the show in 3 minutes, and so I got to take care of this.
Yeah, I've had that happen. I drove the kids to the bus today because it was a little rainy and they were a little late. But that usually leaves me at home at about 8:55 and saying the same thing. But my kids didn't have any rats at all.
Right. So it's funny because I was just looking at the pundit roundup that I wrote this morning, and of course I had posted that pundit roundup before calling in. Yes. And the title is Abbreviated Pundit Roundup: When the Ship Sinks, Rats Spend More Time with Their Families.
I see.
And I guess they heard about it and wanted to take some issue with it, and luckily Abby took care of it because she's my fixer.
Yeah, they spend more time with your family, the last of their time.
So I got some great stuff to talk to you about here, but, I spoke to you last on Thursday, and like 15 and really super important things happened since then.
Yes, that's
including
war
in Syria and Comey's book, just to name a couple. But also Michael Cohen getting into even more trouble, and then having to go to a hearing and explain to the federal judge that, no, he really is a lawyer. And, he's entitled to, like, lawyer, as they put it on Saturday Night Live, he's entitled to lawyer criminal, privilege.
Right.
And the judge said, well, who do you represent? And he said, I'll get back to you on that. I mean, literally, that's what happened. And the judge said, what do you mean you'll get back to us on that? And they asked for a delay, and he's going to show up today at 1 o'clock with his list of other people that he covers.
Yeah.
Michael Corleone.
Why not?
Donald Trump, and who else? And Stormy Daniels is going to be there. That
sounds fun.
She gets to sit in the gallery and sort of distract them. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, over the weekend, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal that Michael Cohen also reportedly killed Us.
What?
Us, the magazine.
Oh.
A weekly story about Donald Jr. having an affair.
Oh. All right.
And he got paid $250,000 for that for like 2 days' work, which is really good work here.
Right.
So
why couldn't
that
find
was in the Wall Street Journal. Honestly, I don't know if that's a paywall or not, so I'll give you the Mediaite version of it, which is not paywalled.
Sure. Why pay anyone for their work, I say.
I'm just saying Michael Cohen is kind of an interesting guy who only has like one client, except, he has a lot of clients. I got Michael Corleone, I got Donald Trump, I got Donald Trump Jr., I got whoever is the finance chair at the Republican National Committee. Promise you they're going to need me.
Oh, my God, that guy. By the way, big, as the kids say, ups. To our Montreal girl, B.J. Hutch, who has been after us and pointing to Brody. Is it Ken Brody? Over and over again. And I keep saying, I don't even understand who this guy is or where he's coming from, but he keeps turning up in things. And then a second, third time, good eye. I mean, I'm missing this guy, but for your pointers. And now he's not only back, but I mean, like dead center again. Amazing.
Yeah. It is amazing.
Good eye there.
Right. So thank you for that. So there's that, and that part of it is certainly important. It's just trying to put the whole thing together and really understanding what it means. I came across. Oh, let's do this first. This is Judd Legum, who is tweeting about.
Oh, what do you call it? Is he Legume now?
Legume, Legume.
I don't know. I'll ask him. No, I won't.
Yeah.
I'll just
I think it's pronounced Scalise. So in about an hour, Michael Cohen has a big decision to make. He's pretty much screwed either way.
Go to jail.
Okay. A
Yes.
federal judge has ordered Cohen to turn over his client list by 10 a.m. this morning. For most lawyers, this wouldn't be a problem. After all, anyone you sign up as a client could end up being public record anyway.
That's true, and it's important to know who you represent.
But Cohen seems to have a specialty in silencing women through hush money, threats, or whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. This makes the decision to release the client list more difficult.
It's like the D.C. Madam's book, the little black book.
Yeah, well, prove it that you had client. Yeah, I can prove it in court. Yeah, go ahead and prove it. Okay, I'll release my list. Don't do that.
Oh, my God. Yeah, this will be interesting.
Cohen can release a list of everybody he fixed problems for, and this would give him a puncher's chance of keeping that list info from federal prosecutors, but it also could cast a cloud over everybody on the list. Alternatively, he could leave a lot of people off on the theory they weren't really clients. That could save them from some embarrassment, but increases the chances his correspondence with them ends up in the hands of investigators.
Yes.
The last option is to ignore the federal judge and not turn over a list. Never a good option. Actually, there's another option, which is what he did the other day. Not show up, smoke cigars outside of his hotel where he's living, and have everybody take pictures of him sitting with the Russian mafia and all the other fixers and the ex-head of the Deutsche Bank and all the other people who, he just hangs out doing crooked deals with.
I couldn't believe that one. I saw it, and Kate Sherrill sent a capture of the photo. And right over Cohen's, I guess, right shoulder there, smoking away on the cigars, is the CFO of Deutsche Bank, which what are you doing?
Okay, so that
nuts.
And our discussion of medallions last week.
Yes, true.
Okay, puts this enormously entertaining piece by Adam Davidson from the New Yorker into perspective, which let's just say everybody was talking about.
Yes. I like the way Armando was talking about it. He said, this is a great piece because we have been discussing this forever on the show. So, okay,
Did he say that?
Yeah.
He's right. We did.
All right.
On May 1st, 2003, the day actually, we discussed his tweets the other day on this. On May 1st, 2003, the day President George W. Bush landed on the USS Abraham Lincoln in front of the massive Mission Accomplished sign, I was in Baghdad performing what had become a daily ritual. I went to a gate on the side of the Republican Palace in the Green Zone where an American soldier was receiving, one by one, a long line of Iraqis who came with questions and complaints. I remember a man complaining his house had been run over by a tank. You think you got problems. Right?
My son almost did that.
All I was doing is chasing Abby around. If this guy had his house run over by a tank, that would have put a damper on the show, I think, this morning if that happened to me. If there was a woman who had been a government employee and wanted to know better salary, and then the soldier had a form he was supposed to fill out with each person's request and the person's contact info. I stood there as the man talked to each person, each time said phone number, and each person would answer some version of, the phone system of Iraq has been destroyed. Then the soldier would turn over the next person, write down the person's question or complaint, and then say, phone number. So he arrived in Baghdad on April 12th of that year, and basically journalists on the ground were trying to tell people back here that it's not going the way they say, and there's a lot of things that just don't work. And it's a little bit of anarchy here, and he was trying to convey this. And he says it took a while for the public to really catch on as to what was going on. And then you recall he had another one of those light bulb moments. He had a similar feeling in December 2007 to the financial crisis. He was doing CDOs. He admits lots of other people did it before him, but once he understood what was going on there, he realized we were about to head into a massive financial crisis, which, of course, we did, a year later.
Yeah.
And he says, I thought of these earlier experiences as I began to feel a familiar clarity about what will unfold next in the Trump presidency. There's lots of details and surprises to come, but the end game of this presidency seems as clear now as those of Iraq and the financial crisis did months before they unfolded. Last week, federal investigators raided the offices of Michael Cohen, the man who has been closer than anybody to Trump's most problematic business and personal relationships. This week, we learned that Cohen has been under criminal investigation for months. His emails have been read, presumably his phones have been tapped, and his meetings have been monitored. Trump's long declared a red line. Robert Mueller must not only investigate his businesses, must only look at any possible collusion with Russia. He must only look at Russia, not his businesses. The red line is now crossed for Trump in the most troubling of ways. Even if he were to fire Rosenstein and then had Mueller and his investigation put on ice, funny term for talking about a mob family, and even if, as is disturbingly possible, Congress did nothing, the Cohen prosecution would continue, even if Trump pardons Cohen. The information the feds have on him can become the basis for charges against others in Trump org.
True.
Okay? So here's what he's getting into here. This is the week we know with increasing certainty that we are entering the last phase of the Trump presidency. Beginning of the end. The end of the beginning is over. The beginning of the end is upon us, he says. This doesn't feel like a prophecy. It feels like a simple statement of the apparent truth. I know dozens of reporters and other investigators who have studied Donald Trump and his business and political ties. Some have been skeptical of the idea that Trump himself knowingly colluded with Russian officials. It seems not at all Trumpian to participate in a complex plan with a long-term uncertain payoff. Collusion is an imprecise word, but it does seem close to certain that his son, Donald Jr., and several people who work for him colluded with people close to the Kremlin. It's up to prosecutors and then the courts to figure out if this was illegal or deceitful. We may have a hard time finding out what President Trump himself knew and approved. However, I am unaware of anybody who has taken a serious look at Trump's business who doesn't believe there's high likelihood of rampant criminality. In Azerbaijan, he did business with a likely money launderer for Iran's Revolutionary Guard. In the Republic of Georgia, he partnered with a group that was being investigated for a possible role in the largest known bank fraud and money laundering case in history. In Indonesia, his development partners knee-deep in dirty politics. There are criminal investigations of his deals in Brazil. The FBI is reportedly looking into his daughter Ivanka's role in the Trump Hotel in Vancouver, for which she worked with a Malaysian family that has admitted to financial fraud. Back home, Donald Jr. and Ivanka were investigated for financial crimes associated with the Trump Hotel in Soho, and an investigation that was halted suspiciously. I think that's the one where Barada was fired.
Is that the one I'm thinking of? Certainly of Cy Vance just dropping.
Could be that one. Yeah. I'm not sure. Another New Yorker long story on that, how Ivanka Trump and Donald Jr. avoided a criminal indictment.
Yes.
And, that definitely was part of the whole deal there. And Mark Kasowitz is there as well. But, yes, that was the Cy Vance dropping the case, defending his decision, even though he got a very hefty donation for his reelection. But in any case, the piece here is very similar to what we were talking about with the medallions. Every time you mention somebody with one degree of separation from Trump, they're indicted, or they've been convicted, or they're currently on trial.
Yeah, met at the airport mysteriously by the FBI, whatever. Actually, those people are generally 2 steps away or more.
So, and this next paragraph is true for radio. Listing all the financial misconduct can be overwhelming and tedious. I've limited myself to some of the deals over the past decade, ignoring Trump's long history of links to the New York Mafia figures and other financial irregularities. We covered that the other day. It has become commonplace to say that enough was known about Trump's shady business before he was elected. His followers voted for him precisely because they liked that he was someone willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. They also believe that all rich business people have to do shady things from time to time. In this way of thinking, any new information about his corrupt past has no political salience. Those who hate Trump already think he's a crook. Those who love him don't care. And he says, I believe this assessment is wrong.
Oh, good.
Sure. Many people have a vague sense of Trump's shadiness, but once the full details are better known and digested, a fundamentally different narrative about Trump will become commonplace. Remember, we knew a lot about problems in Iraq in 2003. Americans saw TV footage of looting and heard reports of U.S. forces struggling to gain control of the country. We had plenty of reporting through 2007 about various minor financial problems. Somehow, though, these specific details failed to impress upon most Americans the overall picture. It took a long time for the nation to accept these are not minor aberrations, but signs of fundamental crisis. Sadly, things had to get much worse before Americans came to see that our occupation of Iraq was disastrous, and a few years later, financial system was in tatters. The narrative that will become widely understood is that Donald Trump did not sit atop a global empire. He was not an intuitive genius and tough guy who created billions of dollars of wealth through fearlessness. He had a small, sad operation, mostly run by his 2 oldest children and Michael Cohen, a lousy lawyer who barely kept out the pretense of lawyering, and who now faces an avalanche of charges from taxicab-backed bank fraud to money laundering and campaign finance violations.
Yes, there we go. That's the crux of what we've been discussing for a long time. He has no empire. It's just him shuffling a bunch of dirty money around.
Yeah. Cohen, Donald Jr., and Ivanka monetized their willingness to sign contracts with people rejected by all sensible partners. Even in this, the Trump organization left money on the table, taking $1 million here, $5 million there, even though the service they provided was worth far more, which is giving branding legitimacy to sketchy projects. It was not a company that built value over decades, accumulating assets and leveraging wealth. It burned through whatever goodwill and brand value it established as quickly as possible, then moved on to the next scheme. And we see that with Trump University, right?
Yeah.
You take money from people.
Everything.
You don't expect them to enroll in a second project after what you did.
Yeah.
You take the money and move on to somebody else.
Right. And well, that in particular, yeah, where you're actively burning people. But so many other things that got launched. And, I don't care. Does Trump vodka taste good? Who gives a crap? Is Trump water clean? I don't care.
But more than that, think of all the small business people he stiffed.
Yes,
and the
that's
question
true
on the
too.
table
Right.
is, why would you work for Trump twice? If you did, something's going on.
That's true. You're stealing too. Or you're cut in on
You're getting
one of the
something
thefts.
out of it that is probably not, up and up and all that sort of stuff. So there's no longer one major investigation into Trump focused solely on collusion with Russia. There are now at least two, including a thorough review of Cohen's correspondence. The information in his office and hotel room will likely make clear precisely how much the Trump family knew. What we already know is disturbing, and it's hard to imagine the information prosecutors will learn soon will do anything but worsen the picture. And, of course, Trump is raging and he's furious and he's terrified. Prosecutors are looking at his core. And what happens next, we don't know. We don't know when it'll be made public. We don't know the precise path the next few months will take. There will be resistance, denial, counterattacks. But it seems likely that when we look back on this week, we'll see it as a turning point. We're now in the end stages of the Trump presidency. So I guess this was the long-awaited pivot. Now, people, we're talking about this and hitting back about it and saying, you got to sit back and look at the politics, because as long as the Republicans are having the House, and even if the Democrats get the House, how are you going to get 67 senators to impeach, and therefore the whole thing's stupid? Why are you talking about it?
Well, I don't feel the same way, but yes, people do say
I don't
that.
feel the same way either,
Right.
but here's Adam Davidson.
Okay.
So he says, as a response to this, let me go find that particular tweet answer here, and I will give it to you so you can read along. And later, when Scott Anderson does the roundup, everybody else will be able to do the same thing too. And Skype is really not cooperating this morning. I'll have to figure out what's wrong with it. It's not showing me the panel that I put things in, so I have to put it in a different place.
I can see what
So
you're doing.
here it is. In answer to Nate Silver, 538, and Matt Iglesias, who are making these objections about, you don't know anything about politics, Davidson.
Oh.
He says, the politics looks uphill. I'm making an argument that it takes some time for the national narrative to adjust to awful facts. I've seen it vividly twice in the last 15 years, and historians could point to many other examples. Sometimes there are specific media moments, like The Big Short, which, by the way, he worked on. Other times it's simply the accumulation of ugly truths, as in Vietnam, Watergate, or Iraq, or that Walter Cronkite moment.
Okay.
You lost Walter Cronkite for LBJ. There are tipping points in which public opinion flips dramatically and the core national narrative changes. I believe that eventually more Americans will take in the truth of Trump. I think that Cohen's emails and phone calls will rapidly advance that process. I feel highly confident that more people will be indicted, prosecuted, and more fairly irrefutable evidence will emerge. It'll reframe the things we already have reported. I have no idea if the process takes 3 months or 3 years. I don't know if Trump will be impeached. I find it highly unlikely he'd win re-election, but he might. That being said, I think he is already in something of a lame duck phase. His presidency is already in some ways over. It would have been better to talk with people who understand the underlying facts when we're talking about 2003, 2007, as other examples. But some of the phrases that will come out in reference to Trump's business partners will become part of our national media diet. Terror financing, that'll be interesting. WMD proliferation. Sex trafficking, murder.
Ah, yes, them. Yeah,
Boring
murder.
old stuff like bribery, sanctions, violations, money laundering.
Okay.
I imagine, he says, Ivanka, Don Jr., and Jared are in extreme legal risk. So my prediction is based on believing I have a sense of the news flow of the coming year. But, Could be wrong.
That's true.
Had that very incendiary piece, but could be wrong.
It's quite correct.
Should end every one of his shows, Mob family, Mueller's actually organized crime. Hillary should go to jail for her crimes against humanity. But,
Yes.
hey, could be wrong.
Right.
Or maybe Alex Jones should do the same thing.
True.
It's a great tagline.
It is, although, I think he's on firmer ground. The question of whether or not impeachment happens or impeachment results in removal, which are, once again, remember, two separate things. That's out there. But I guess by way of explanation, I guess, of where he is and what he's saying, consider that they didn't actually impeach Nixon. Everyone just felt like the tipping point had been reached and that was inevitable, but they didn't go ahead and try it and see. And there was really, that was still kind of an open question, though we now look back on it and say, well, surely it would have, because, there's this avalanche of information and a realization that he was at the center of a
And besides, that's the way stories like that end.
Yeah. Right. And
we like stories that end the way we want them to.
That's essentially what could be happening here. They may never get around to impeaching him and removing him from office. He may leave office in some other way. He may not. What
he
he's
can eat
describing
75
is
Big Macs, and explode. It's 100 things that can happen.
There is that. Right. And I guess all he's really saying here is the point really is that everyone's getting around to this conclusion, and really almost no matter how it resolves itself, everyone may in fact come away 20 years hence with the impression that, yeah, sure, we impeached him. Oh, wait a minute. Checking the record, we didn't? Oh, but we were definitely going to. Just like Nixon, it was about to happen. So it happened. He was gone. That could be all it takes. We will see. Well, how about we examine it after a 2-minute timeout for reconsidering everything he said, and moving on with the rest of the day's news. We'll be back after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, that are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right. Well, we're going to be back on the air. We're ready to give it another try with Greg Dworkin. Did you say you found your materials on your screen?
Well, I do, but it's not the way in place I want it.
Don't change anything, Skype. But yeah, I can see what you mean. It's a little bit different. I don't know. They didn't say they updated.
It's different for you too.
But yeah, slightly. Although it doesn't really make as much of a difference to me, since I'm usually just passively watching what you're sending me. Oh, I see you've opened a nice window here.
And that's what I'm seeing.
You're showing me the show me your screen. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
I'm trying to find all the things that I posted there this morning, and that's all I got.
Now, I have your list. If I click on that, the other icon over on the bottom left of the screen, I can see the list of all the things that you've sent me so far.
Yep.
What do I do now? Send them back to you?
I can see them. They're over on the left in a little tiny, list to the left, but it's not on the main screen like it used to be.
You want it there. I see.
They used to be reversed.
Well, there must be some way of doing that.
Anyway, there it is.
One day we'll learn what it is.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's yours.
Okay. Well, all right. So what else happened? I don't know. Where were we? Now I'm distracted.
Yeah, well, anyway, we're having fun with this. So what else happened? Trey Gowdy was on Fox News.
Okay.
And gives a very strong defense of the Michael Cohen raid.
Oh.
Gowdy, who's retiring, says to Chris Wallace, Most important thing we know is that a neutral, detached federal judge has nothing to do with politics signed off on this warrant. And as the Trumps criticizing Mueller, I don't know what Mueller's supposed to do other than what he did. So the hearing today is going to be quite interesting. I guess at 10 o'clock is when Michael Cohen is either supposed to be smoking cigars out with his buddies or actually in court trying to justify that he's actually a lawyer. I was getting information from a right-wing, very right-wing lawyer on Twitter over the weekend saying lawyers are upset about this because he's breaking the lawyer-client privilege. And I said to him, it's lawyer-criminal privilege because actually it's criminal because neither one is a lawyer and both are crooks. Yeah. What do you do with that? Well, it remains to be seen. I haven't seen proof of that. It's the old, I haven't seen proof.
Yeah,
I haven't seen proof of collusion. I haven't seen proof of all the different things that you said in terms of Trump being involved with all these crooks. Yeah. Well, okay, if you don't want to see it, then don't look. But
I guess there's that. Now, you were talking to, he's a lawyer you were talking to?
Yeah, and he was just, he said, in general, I get what's going on here. I totally understand that there might have been a reason for this, but lawyers get upset when the government raids other lawyers' offices.
So what?
He said, and he's telling me, and I think what'll happen is all the right-wing lawyers who agree with me are going to get more upset about this than what they actually find. I'm just telling you, that's what I think the view will be from this end.
Well, that's an interesting view, and it's a good one to share with someone else who is not a lawyer, because a lawyer would say back to you, what do you mean you haven't seen proof? First of all, who are you? Second of all, the judge has, so that's the role of the judge. And third, it's not really supposed to be proof that he's showing you. It's just, at this point, there has to be reasonable doubt about what's going on, not beyond all shadow of a doubt, not even, this is just preponderance of the evidence stuff at this point.
Right,
that.
Right. But remember, I told you the other day, you cannot win an argument, you have to persuade. So I said to him, look, I get where you're coming from, and why don't we just wait and see how it plays out? Because obviously there's more to it than just what we know. We know that because even if you look at the material that the government presented to the judge, a lot of it's redacted. You don't know what's in the redacted.
Right, but you're not the judge, so.
And you're not the judge, so why don't we just wait and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about the other cases about which you know nothing, Mr. Lawyer, but we'll go around and around in the same circles. And I understand that you're upset, but I essentially have to tell you at this point, one, it's lunchtime. Two, who cares? You're upset. Big deal. Go eat.
Yeah, well, again.
That's what you do with your anxiety.
And again, as we talked about last week, remember that some of us are not that interested in what the other side thinks.
Right. That is me.
We did cover that.
Right. Okay. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. And this is the most popular thing for right-wing lawyers to have to latch onto, because it gives them the opportunity to complain about process, usually process that most people don't understand. And they get to say, well, I'm objecting on this very high principle. I don't like it when they raid other lawyers' offices, and I don't like it when lawyers are criminals.
Exactly.
That's my big deal.
We all agree on that, and I like to find common ground. And then I said to him at that point, you know what? It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see a list of who his clients are, and that's when we stop talking.
I guess that that will be fun, and but okay. So I'll indulge that and say, duly noted. Can I write this down? Can we make a public thing of this? XYZ lawyer says he's got doubts, and then we'll bring this back at allocution time.
Right. I did better than that. He picked an argument with my friend Marcy Wheeler, and I said, good, fine.
You take him. All right.
Go ahead. You
Good
do
idea.
That.
Okay.
She knows like 15 times more than you do, and can cite chapter and verse because she's got an eidetic memory and never forgets. But go ahead,
Yeah, that should be fun. All right, good. Good handoff. I like that.
The fact is that we're going to know more about that today.
Good. We don't even have to wait very long.
And I am not a lawyer, and I don't play one on the internets, but I don't think that Cohen and Trump's lawyer, who intervened on Trump's behalf, saying that, you know what we really need to do? Instead of you going ahead and seizing all this stuff because you don't trust us, because that's why you seized it and didn't ask for it as a subpoena, as is normally done, why don't you give it to us to review, and we'll decide what to give you and what not? Because I know you don't trust us, but let us go through it first.
Yeah, no.
And all I can say is, there are people who didn't like it, but I just thought it was pretty funny. Saturday Night Live did a great sketch with, I guess, Ben Stiller playing Michael Cohen and Robert De Niro playing Robert Mueller for the cold open. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth seeing.
Okay.
And, kind of, again, just as Adam Davidson was doing, it may not get all the facts right. It might not have been the best Robert Mueller imitation anybody ever saw. I saw somebody said, hey, Susan Hennessy, who writes at Lawfare, that wasn't a very good take on Robert Mueller. He doesn't sound like that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody knows what Robert Mueller sounds like.
That's true.
It didn't matter.
That is a good point. No one has heard him because he doesn't do this.
Sounds like a tough guy. That's all you need to know. It's a great sketch.
Yeah. All right. I will take a look. I finally watched Wonder Woman on Saturday.
Ah, you did. I love that movie.
That was my big
now,
big
have you
adventure.
seen Black Panther? That's even more important.
Yeah. I was trying to catch up on some of these. I did see Black Panther. But that was good, yeah. So I'm caught up on all my the new wave of unusual superhero movies that don't have white guys as the heroes.
All right, so do that because the Infinity Wars are coming and you got to get prepped.
Right.
So let's see what else we're going to wind up talking about. I had a lot in the pundit roundup today. Let's see, John Cipher, who's former CIA clandestine service.
Oh yes.
Was doing this commentary on Adam Davidson's piece. And the quote he chose is, I am unaware of anybody who has taken a serious look at Trump's business who doesn't believe that there's a high likelihood of rampant criminality. That one just sort of jumps up at you. Max Bergman says, I can say the same thing about those who have taken a serious look at collusion with Russia.
Well.
There's stuff out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we had that Wall Street Journal story on Cohen.
Oh, right.
Paying $1.6 million to get Elliot Broidy off the hook. That's his first name, Elliot. And past agreements. Part of the deal here and part of the reason Cohen's in trouble, I guess, is that what would happen is that some figure, be it Donald Trump Jr. or Elliot Broidy or Trump himself, would get into trouble with a girl, and then mysteriously the girl would find a lawyer to represent them.
Yes.
Would then get in touch. It's always the same lawyer.
Right.
A fellow named Davidson.
Amazing.
And
totally
then that
illegal.
lawyer would get in touch with Michael Cohen, and then they'd work out a settlement, and Davidson gets a 40% contingency.
They're both getting disbarred for that.
That doesn't seem to be the way it's supposed to work. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't seem like that's giving the women fair representation.
And it wasn't really much discussed. I saw over the weekend. I wasn't scouring the internets the way I was supposed to because I was watching Wonder Woman. And but yeah, there was a huge part of the Friday story. You can't do that. And this was in conjunction with the National Enquirer's capture and kill story. Like, why did every woman who was alleged to have an affair either with Donald Trump, his son, or his friends, or whatever, why did they all find themselves suddenly trapped in exclusivity agreements with the National Enquirer, who then refused to publish the story? But it happened with him. It happened with the doorman. Even that doorman who found out about the alleged sixth Trump child was similarly bound up in an exclusivity agreement with the National Enquirer and represented by this same lawyer. Not only were they buying the story and then spiking the story and then enforcing the exclusivity agreement against these people who could otherwise tell their story elsewhere, they all ended up in these bad deals. And what was weird is they all ended up in the same bad deals, having been advised to take those same bad deals from the same lawyer who represented to them that he was just a guy in the yellow pages and, hey, I'm a lawyer, I can help you with it, and instead had been referred each time by the other beneficiary of the capture and kill agreement, Donald Trump and Michael Cohen. You can't do that. There has to be independent representation. I mean, there should, even that's not even exactly right, but you should, as a client, be aware of the fact that you're not getting independent representation. But if you are misrepresenting that you are, in fact, an independent attorney and aren't working for the other side in all of this and fool your client into believing that they are your client, not the other party to the agreement, then you got a pretty serious ethics problem, and you're all getting disbarred.
So Michael Avenatti, who is representing Stormy Daniels, tweets this morning, "Those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it," the famous Santayana quote. But with it, he links an old New York Times story. U.S. says top Gotti aide will testify against the boss.
Oh, there you go.
John Gotti, capo de tutti capos.
By the way, what else did Santayana ever say? Did he ever repeat in history at any point?
I think he just wrote the one thing.
Yeah, so we learned that history, and then we were doomed never to hear from him again. This is a bad plan. Okay.
But anyway, people who are working on the Trump case have, in fact, prosecuted organized crime before.
They have, and that was a big deal when he recruited them. People took note of that. Reporters did.
Mm-hmm. As well as those who were very skilled at financial crime. So again, you lay all of that out, and that seems to lay out a world of hurt for Michael Cohen, who I just don't think is going to win this appeal. No.
I had a feeling also when he was out there smoking those cigars, like I thought Friday, I tweeted out at I think he's going to smoke those cigars. He's going to go out for a huge, delicious, extravagant steak dinner and then jump off the roof of his apartment building. I feel like that's coming. But I don't know. I guess he's... do you think he thinks he beats the rap, or is he just enjoying his best life until he goes in?
It's hard to know.
Yeah. Oh,
really hard to know.
Speaking of which, by the way, I should dig this one up. I know I have this somewhere. It was when we were talking about the taxi medallions.
Yes.
One of our listeners.
Dark story.
Yeah. We got an interesting story. So Bill in Portland, our Bill in Portland, Maine. Bill was talking about the taxi medallions, and he got a response from Jack, who not our Jack Ox, but Jack Altogether is how he tweets under the handle of Jack Altogether. He says, this was just interesting. My dad knew a guy in the 80s, insurance agent, who did a couple of years in jail instead of rolling on a client. His reward, taxi medallion. That was like how you reward a guy who goes to prison rather than give you up. That's how valuable these things are, and that's how the kind of business they get wrapped up in. Who does that? Here's a tax. That's what taxi medallions are all about. There's no clean taxi medallions.
It is an actual physical thing that goes on the hood of the car, by the way.
Okay, excellent. I have not observed it. It seems like the sort of thing that would be pried off of the front of a car, but I guess that's what a taxi will run you over before they let that happen. Amazing. Okay.
So let's see what else we have from the Pundit Roundup before I go. Let's see. Trump lawyer Michael Cohen used the same Delaware company for payment deals to two women, so I guess he set up a show company just for that one thing. And that was the only thing that company did. Some new polling out. Wait a minute. Before we get to the polling, just to say, things are tightening in some areas, not tightening in others. But the most interesting thing I thought was from the NBC Wall Street Journal poll on the Russia investigation.
Okay.
37% say the indictments or guilty pleas suggest potential wrongdoing by Trump. 37%.
That seems low.
25% say they suggest wrongdoing is just by those individuals. That's your right-wing lawyer process thing.
I see.
Cohen isn't guilty. It was just a process thing. He shouldn't have done it. The government was overreaching. Okay, well, the government got stuff. They shouldn't use it. Okay, they're using it. It's bad. Okay, it's bad, but it's just Cohen.
All right.
Sure. I mean, that's the logic.
Yeah.
So 25% say they suggest wrongdoing by just those individuals. Mm-hmm. And the important statistic for me, 36% don't know enough to say. It's that 36% that Adam Davidson is talking about when he says that the whole narrative may in fact change because those folks may come around, and that all of a sudden makes an overwhelming majority saying, yeah, it's important.
I get it. Yeah, that's true. So our centrist group that says, I get the sense that they're developing something, but I'm waiting to see the proof. Like, I don't know. Okay, you're not from New York, so fine. Wait, right. And you'll see.
Now, This is a thread by a fella named Gautam Mukunda.
That guy again.
And he has written a book about presidents.
Good. Excellent. Ours?
It's called Indispensable When Leadership Really Matters. Will your next leader be insignificant or indispensable? He's an assistant professor in the organizational behavior unit of Harvard Business School.
Okay, that would be ours then.
And
Harvard
before that,
is
he
in
was
our
a National
country.
Science Foundation's synthetic biology postdoc fellow at MIT.
Wow.
For Center for International Studies, and received his PhD from MIT in political science and an AB from government from Harvard. So
that's a lot of
who
good
he is.
stuff.
Oh, he also consulted with McKinsey, which is a fairly famous consulting firm.
Synthetic
So
biology.
he's done work in and around government, and he writes this book called
And other
Indispensable.
things.
And then he has this tweet storm, which I thought was of interest.
All right.
He says that Trump's recent tweeting is pretty clearly a sign of precipitous decline in office. Since I literally wrote the book on unfiltered outsider presidents, this seems like the time for my first ever tweet storm.
Okay.
Little, if any, Trump's behavior in office has been even slightly surprising.
Yeah. Where is? I'm not seeing this one here, but
Because you have it there. I'm
Oh,
just finding
well,
where I
there.
put it. There it is.
it's too intellectual.
At the
I
bottom.
can't see it. Yes. Okay.
Little, if any, of Trump's behavior in office has been even slightly surprising. He is who he was before taking power. Corruption, mismanagement, erratic hiring and firing, constant random outbursts of temper, narcissistic boasting, barely coded racism. That's who he always was.
All right.
Big change has been the steady erosion of the buffers that have, more than most people appreciate, protected us from his worst traits.
Really.
Master and Tillerson even pushed out, Kelly marginalized, et cetera, et cetera. Trump is so awful. He makes even someone like Jeff Sessions look kind of good.
Okay.
Well, there he is threatening Sessions, and you should fire again. Sessions saying, just leave things alone.
I see.
Hillary doesn't need another special prosecutor, said Sessions. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's where that's coming from.
I see. All right. Sure.
I mean, that just gives you an idea how bad Trump is, not
Right.
that Sessions is good. Worsening the situation is that Trump is rightly terrified of investigations into his business practices. And it always comes back to his business practices, doesn't it?
Well, it's all he allegedly
You know, the
has.
famous line, when you're trying to figure out a complex situation, it's either about sex or money. And in this particular case, it's both.
Right.
Whatever he did with Russia, it's been clear that the Trump organization is just a front for fairly inept white-collar crime, particularly money laundering, for a while. The New Yorker piece by Adam Davidson, told you everybody was talking about it, lays this out clearly, but it's been obvious to anybody who looked at his business since long before the election, and both Mueller's team and the Southern District New York will have no difficulty following the money.
Right.
Additionally,
Yes.
whether or not Trump has underlying health issues, the presidency itself is likely changing him by exaggerating his underlying tendencies. Power tends to make people worse. And insulating him from any feedback that might tend to moderate his behavior. While Trump's staff is increasingly a mixture of sycophants willing to tell him what he wants to hear, ambitious Republicans willing to do anything for short-term career advancement, true believers like Stephen Miller, and a shrinking handful of patriots trying to mitigate the damage. I guess he's talking about Mattis.
Okay.
This, plus his increasing age, means that Trump's own tendencies, the narcissism, rage, lack of self-control, reactive responses to any challenge, use of racial political appeals, managerial incoherence, are going to get even more exaggerated. This is not a hopeful story. So far, like a wealthy family living off its capital, the U.S. government has maintained some level of functioning through institutional memory, the strength of the civil service, luck, and Jim Mattis. Yeah, he was referring to
really
Mattis.
likes Jim
But this will
Mattis.
get harder with each passing day. With Trump feeling Mueller's hot breath on the back of his neck and the Southern District, New York, clearly deep in another, perhaps even more threatening to him investigation, the increasing pressure will only add to the toxic stew inside the White House. There will be a rupture. If it doesn't come before the elections, a major Democratic victory there will scare or shock him so much that one will surely come soon after. The most powerful empire in human history is governed by somebody who is erratic at best and getting worse. Democrat, Republican, or Independent, the only thing that matters is working to maximize the odds that 1, it can be put off until after the elections, and 2, Democratic majorities will then be able to contain him, and 3, no wars or other catastrophes until then. The only people who can make this happen are the swing Republican senators, Collins, Murkowski, Flake. History's eyes are on you like no triumvirate of senators since Webster, Calhoun, and Clay in the 19th century. This is your moment. What will you do? Well, we know what they'll do. Very little. But, we'll see.
Yeah, I'll summarize all that they're going to do during the next break.
Those three plus Democrats are a majority in the Senate. That's really the point.
Right.
Plus McCain.
Yes, true. And, a majority is enough to at least stop legislation and finish, and finish appointments, etc.
So with that, that's my show for today. I am sure we have a lot more to talk about, but I think Michael Cohen's going to be front and center today. The Comey fallout, the Syria strikes seems like 10 years ago. It was only Friday night.
And we don't know what the hell happened, really, and
almost nothing.
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do big shock and awe like nothing, go away, and now I want to get out. I don't know. Go. Something else happened. I'm worried about this Michael Cohen stuff. Go away. I mean, that's basically how the White House is handling this.
I guess so. I mean, there's very little else for them to do. Most people spent the weekend putting side by side, Trump's tweets declaring how awesome he was for attacking Syria side by side with his 2013 through 2016 tweets saying the president, and then Barack Obama, would be an idiot to attack Syria. Don't do it.
Well, there's always something, and there's always a tweet. So with that, this is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman Kagro in the morning, who'll carry you for the rest of the show because, it's his show, He just lets me on so I can interrupt him, which I love. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, I've been interrupting David for like 15 years now.
That's uninterrupted for 15
uninterrupted talking over him for almost 15 years.
Right.
So I'm hopeful as people were saying they really enjoyed last week's set of shows, and I did too. I'm hoping Armando and Joan can come on so I can interrupt them as well.
Excellent.
Take care, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Okay, very good. Thank you, and happy ratting to you for the rest of the week, and to Abby as well. Nothing more delicious than, I guess, Norwegian. Are they Norwegians, really? That is, we should let more of them into the country, I think, is what the president will have to say about this. All right. Well, so right-wing lawyers are upset. I understand Alan Dershowitz is upset. I did see LOL GOP tweeting about that earlier. Did I put that aside anywhere? Let's see. Oh, yeah, right. Then I clicked over to the Kyle Griffin tweet about Trump going golfing, but I'm pretty sure that he did have a tweet about that, and just basically about Alan Dershowitz and, defenders of the president in general, now claiming to be very, very concerned about preserving the civil liberties of the president here. The earlier such tweet about this from LOL GOP. Hi, I'm the famous Harvard lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, very concerned about the civil liberties of a president who calls for his political opponents to be jailed every time he sneaks off into the, say, bathroom with his phone. Basically quite true. And there was another similar such tweet, basically saying this can't be your concern. The president is constantly calling for his political opponents to be jailed. Yeah, here it is. Congratulations to everyone who is defending the civil liberties of the most powerful person in the world, who demands that his political opponents be jailed daily and deports veterans for kicks. Yeah, that's kind of where we are with this guy at this point, and you really shouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, civil liberties, it's a serious thing, and, whatever, and you got to make sure that you're following process where applicable, and of course it certainly appears that we are. I noticed that Armando was commenting when Greg was on, I actually kind of agree with the lawyer that Greg was talking to, and I think what you meant, and you can come on and clarify it or just clarify it in the background. Yes, those are serious objections. Yes, you always should. I mean, why not? As a civil libertarian, you say basically, was due process followed here? The ordinary presumption in the ordinary course of things with ordinary lawyers and ordinary clients is that, you won't be raiding a criminal target's attorney's office, home, hotel room, any combination of the three, because almost certainly what's in there is privileged material. Of course, what it is that maintains the privilege, that establishes and maintains the privilege, is the presumption that there is a normal attorney-client relationship going on here, and that while in the course of providing a zealous defense for a criminal defendant or suspect or person of interest or anything, while you're safeguarding that person's rights, there is going to be some discussion of matters that might, in fact, be prejudicial to the client, but which are related to a legal and ethical and permissible scheme of defense for that client, as opposed to, as your lawyer, why don't you please give me $100,000 and I will contract for someone to murder all of the witnesses against you. That's actually just participation in a crime. And there is no privilege for that. Even though you thought you were doing it in further defense of your client, there are some things that are impermissible about that. And yeah, it takes a lot to convince a judge normally that that's going on, but it has to happen. You can't simply, for instance, you can't simply just allege that it's happening to a judge. You do have to come with some sort of evidence, but for instance, a lawyer at this point holding out for definitive proof that is exactly what's happening and show me the proof, when one, no, you're not entitled to see the proof, and two, it doesn't have to come in the form, even to the judge issuing the warrant, in the form of definitive proof beyond any shadow of a doubt, but beyond any reasonable doubt. That's not the standard that they're looking to uphold here. All they have to do at this point is prove that there's a more reasonable chance than not that they will find evidence that establishes not only the underlying crime, but establishes the exception to the lawyer-client privilege as well. And then they look through it, sift it out, make arguments, hash it out. And yes, a judge could absolutely at the end say, you know what, I thought you were going to find it, but it seems to me that you didn't, and so therefore all of this is excluded. That's still available. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Ready to get started with our second hour of the show. That's an important point, I think. I think everybody probably grasps it too, but just to reiterate, yeah, all of that due process is still available to Michael Cohen and everybody else too. You can absolutely go back to the judge, now the evidence having been seized, and sifted through by the prosecution, and as they will now have to argue over the objections and any number of objections that they can come up with. On the Cohen-Trump side, they can object that the evidence was seized illegally. They can challenge the validity of the warrant. They can challenge the process by which the warrant was served. They can challenge they can raise the attorney-client privilege and say, you didn't find anything that establishes that our relationship was outside the typical, normal, and allowable attorney-client relationship. All of that can be raised, and it will be incumbent on the prosecution, and not Mueller, but the Southern District of New York, I guess, to overcome those objections. And by the way, I mean, I guess you should remain hopeful, but the Southern District of New York and the U.S. Attorney, that's not Mueller, and that means a lot of things. One, it saves us from the accusation that Mueller is going too far afield. That's true, but it also means that the famed professionalism and tight-lipped approach to everything that Mueller has brought we can't necessarily assume that the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York will adhere to the same practices. You might think so. You might hope so. They should certainly be expected to, but we don't definitely know that they will. And I guess at this point you have to remember a lot of the countervailing facts that have sort of been used to illustrate or to push back on accusations of inherent, deep state inherent bias against Trump in this, have included things like, well, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York is a person of your choosing. Your administration installed that person. True, and that has diffused some of the criticism, but remember that that's still out there. I mean, if you're conspiratorial minded or you're just worried about things, I mean, you could very well find later on that maybe this person's professional approach, professional temperament is very different from Mueller's, and they do leak more often than not. And maybe that's just because they're not as thorough and careful and professional as Mueller, or maybe they are a Trump person at bottom and know very well that if they were to leak certain details, it would be prejudicial against this case. You could and should worry about that, but so far no evidence that that's the case. But I only thought of that as I was thinking during the break about the exceptional nature of a search of an attorney's office, home, hotel room. That is also rather exceptional for various reasons. But yeah, normally you would make this objection, and you might say, part of the argument certainly could be, okay, well, look, we'll get a chance to go over this material privately as between the two parties, and I guess any other interested third parties if necessary, and the judge, and we'll be reviewing this stuff. And as you've seen, the materials only get released in redacted form with only the bare minimum necessary to establish that these are in fact materials relevant to the inquiry about which we're being asked by reporters here, and beyond that, very little else except what might be necessary to establish the fact that a judge did ask, do you have evidence that would tend to prove that this raid will be fruitful and will not unnecessarily damage this lawyer-client relationship or the lawyer-client privilege in general? What do you know about what you're likely to find? What do you think you're likely to find that will establish this, and how likely are you to find it, and why do you think it's so likely? All of that will be discussed. And then there'll be follow-up. You know what? You promised me XYZ, and it doesn't appear to be there. And a judge could be considerably more confident in the ability to work that process out without undue prejudice to the lawyer whose office was raided and the client whom this lawyer claims to represent, if you're dealing with someone like Mueller. It would be a legitimate objection. I don't know if it would necessarily work for you in every case or in any case. Depends on the judge, depends on the situation, depends on the client. But you might very well argue initially that no, this warrant either never should have been issued, since that's about where you'd be able to intervene in the process. You wouldn't be able to argue against the issuance of the warrant. You wouldn't likely be involved in that. But at some point you'd get to argue, this is a bad idea. And maybe even the review shouldn't go forward because this office is notoriously porous. And I think there's a substantial likelihood that this prosecutor will magically find that really damaging material gets leaked along the way. And then, of course, you will eventually conclude, Your Honor, that the warrant shouldn't have issued, or that or at least that the material seized doesn't rise to the level promised when the warrant was issued, and it's going to be excluded. And while it won't make it into a courtroom, and while you can, keep it from a jury if we go forward with prosecution in this case anyway, it will have leaked to the general public in the meantime. And, it'll take us 6 months, to find a jury that doesn't read newspapers in order to give me a fair trial. But that won't even really matter that much if the aim was to destroy me earlier. And that's a, pretty significant objection. And you might get more leeway with somebody like Mueller clamping down on things and say, we have been silent from day one on the most spectacular and far-reaching prosecution the country's ever seen, possibly, at least in terms of a prosecution with the current sitting president of the United States as a person of interest involved anyway. I think you can trust us, and you might get extra leeway, but you might not get that leeway with somebody else. That's true. There's going to be a chance to prove all that. Armando wants to come on, and he says ruin the show. So I guess we'll let him do that now. It's 10:07. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi. Good morning.
That references to a guy who was praising your show last week, and he included me in the tweet, and it turns out I wasn't on the show last week.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. You guys had we took it as saying it. You had an exceptional number of excellent shows last week, and that was the week you didn't come on. But you were commenting in the background, and of course, Greg constantly said that he knew that you would think he was wrong about this, and so therefore he was going to go ahead.
Well, he probably was wrong, but I don't remember what he was talking about.
We don't. Me neither. I don't remember. I wish we knew what we did.
Yeah, I know.
I'd do it again.
And I want to go because it's an interesting day. And you're talking about this Cohen thing.
Yeah.
Supposedly 8 minutes ago, he filed something. I assume it's under seal, where he gives Michael Cohen gives his list of clients.
I'm sure he wants
that might have privileged information in the documents and whatnot, electronically stored information that was seized by the FBI last Monday, 1 week ago. Seems like longer than that, but it was a week ago. And we know of two clients he had, right? Donald Trump,
yes,
or David Dennison, if you will.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
And this Brody character.
Yes, the Dennison part, as I understand it. One of the more amazing things about Michael Cohen and his operation, not only did he represent Brody in the same capacity as Trump in this sense, in other words, fixing an affair, and what an affair, but that he did it in the same fashion and with the same Delaware limited liability company. What was it? I can't remember the name of it.
Essence something.
Yeah, EC.
Essential something.
Yeah, Essential Consultants LLC. So he used the same consultant, but apparently he used the same set of paperwork, not only the non-disclosure agreement, but the sidebar to the contract so that you could do it anonymously. And in fixing, Elliot Broidy's affair, he similarly had him sign a contract saying where Elliot Brody was David Dennison or whatever the name was.
Yeah.
And
he's got one client.
Yeah,
David
the same.
Dennison.
Yeah, and the same name, fake name for the woman that he used for the Stormy Daniels thing. I mean, the guy, and he got $250,000 for that deal too. He didn't even change the names on the contract. It's amazing.
What are you thinking? How is that worth $250,000? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, same way a taxi medallion is worth $1 billion if necessary. How much is this penthouse in a rundown 1985 vintage Trump hotel / condo? $75 million. How much is this flea-infested, mildewed mansion that's been mothballed for a decade worth? $95 million. Whatever I say.
And you mentioned when I was listening, the New Yorker story that I tweeted out and said, guess what? This is what we've been telling you people for 3 years, which we have.
Right.
And it struck me that it was right around that time because my understanding is that Cohen has worked for Trump now for about 12 or 13 years.
Okay.
And that's when all the Russia money showed up.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Well, it stands to reason, as we've reminded people again. Also, he's a childhood friend of Felix Sater's.
Yes.
They talk about that all the time. Wouldn't it be great? You and me together, boy, it's going to be amazing. I can get our boy to be president, and I'll set him up with Putin, and we'll make a mint. So.
And he did.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Right.
I mean, but Cohen before the election, my understanding is he was actually a Trump organization employee. That is, he was an in-house lawyer.
Yeah, I think.
Which you can have a privilege there for the corporation, but
Sure.
you can't have a personal privilege. It's got to be corporate matters.
Oh,
I
yeah,
believe,
that's
unless
true
they
also, I
let him
guess.
have a separate practice in which he was representing Trump. That's not normal, but I guess it could be done. There's a lot of things that aren't normal.
Yeah.
The Trump Organization lawyer joined the case in Los Angeles, the one who has an office at the Trump golf course in Los Angeles. I don't know if you remember that story.
No. It's a very weird situation, to be sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're just claiming these things as they go along, too. Like when you say, well, you can't assert privilege, you're a Trump organization lawyer. You're a lawyer for the Trump organization, not for Donald J. Trump himself. And the way he answers questions, he may have just winged it and said, oh, yes, I am. I'm also that. And you say ordinarily that wouldn't happen. Ordinarily, a company would forbid that from happening. And the rest of the board would say, no. Huge problem. Can't happen, Chief. You're going to have to get your own attorney. And I know you'll have no problem with that. But this guy can only represent the company. But in the Trump organization, Trump is the company, and so that probably made no sense to him. And also, even if it was really true that Cohen wasn't his personal lawyer, if Cohen says, I think I can escape this particular problem if we just say I was, they both say, yeah, sure. And he says yes to that. And then he realizes, oh my God, that creates a whole other problem. Like, I'm going to get disbarred. And then like later on, he'll say, yeah, but I wasn't his personal lawyer that day.
Yeah, I think the stories, what I find interesting in a related matter, which is the Prague thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
I forgot that happened this weekend,
But the
too.
Prague thing is interesting because, of course he denied he was in Prague at
famously,
the time.
Tweeting his pictures of his passport. I've never been to Prague in my life.
Look at the outside of my passport.
Yeah, now that was dumb, but yeah, even so, even all by itself, I've never been to Prague in my life. And over the weekend, we heard from McClatchy, reasonably dependable people, right? Said, word is that Mueller has proof that you were, which is really a big problem for you.
Now, it's a big deal in a number of ways, but it's not. One of the reactions that I didn't understand was, it would be really stupid of Cohen to deny that he was in Prague if there's evidence. It's like, what? You mean sending a tweet is the guy sent 1 million tweets that have proven false. Look at the entire Stormy Daniels saga. He denied the whole thing. He denied there was payments. He denied there was an affair. He denied everything.
Yeah.
And then finally he sheepishly admitted, oh, yeah, there was a payment. And then he sheepishly denied that, who paid it. And then he admitted, well, I paid it. And I took a mortgage on my house story, which, again, I still don't understand.
And then it wasn't the house. It was the taxi medallions, maybe.
Yes. It's the guy will lie until he's caught, and then he'll do a new lie. So what Cohen says about anything, frankly, is, it's. I'm not saying it's proven he was in Prague. I mean, there's just this one story, 2 anonymous sources, clearly not from Mueller, because I am convinced that Mueller does not leak at all. People get caught off guard so often when he files an indictment or a court filing.
Yeah, then it's hard to believe he's
and there's things. Oh my God, look at this. And none of it ever leaked. You only saw it because it was filed. No one knows what Mueller knows. Nobody except the people there. They just don't talk. For better or worse. I mean, better in my opinion. But you can have your opinions about that. So whatever Cohen says about anything is frankly useless. I would say even under oath, but that remains to be seen. He hasn't been put under oath that we know of. So who knows what he'll say under oath. But today he was supposed to list his clients, and as I said, we know Brody, I guess Trump Organization probably, and Donald Trump himself has intervened. They filed a letter brief on the weekend in which they made some arguments that it wasn't a terrible argument. As Greg said, listen, as lawyers, I'm not that comfortable with just letting people come and seize materials, bad. But hopefully there is at least on paper a high bar, and hopefully the magistrate judge took it seriously, and the higher ups in the Justice Department took it seriously, and they made a good faith belief and presentation that they believed they had met the burden of doing it, and we'll see what's in there at some point. Not for a while. It's going to be something that will come out if and when Cohen is indicted, and there's presentations made to the court or to the jury, and we'll know exactly what they're pointing to. There is very clearly, though, from the Southern District of New York office of the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York's presentation, that this is absolutely their show. Mueller brought it to Rosenstein, and Rosenstein sent it to them, and they fully developed it. And it wasn't just a few days ago. They've been working on it for months.
Yes.
And again, it just shows you Mueller doesn't leak.
Yeah, I mean, that we're surprised that Michael Cohen's been under surveillance and on their radar for months is amazing. And I mean, I think when they said it, everybody said, well, of course. But then we realized that's not really appeared in print anywhere. How interesting is that? And by the way, how amazing is it that, Mr. Pretty Smart Brain guy didn't figure this out? That must have been the worst thing for him over the weekend. Is I was calling Cohen on an unsecured line yesterday up until he was supposed to be in court on Friday, and I'm calling him, and I hang up and read, uh-oh. I've been calling a guy whose phones have been tapped for several months, and that'll only bring him back to that. See, I told you they were tapping my phones. Well, they weren't tapping your phones. They were tapping the criminals around you, but of course they were doing that because they knew eventually you would call them and talk crime, and they would have that.
Right. But that is actually kind of interesting because there's two things that about Trump's contacts with Cohen. Number one is we've heard, not confirmed, but we've heard that Cohen likes to tape conversations.
Yes.
Would that include Trump?
It certainly could, and that's they talked about seizing tapes possibly from this raid, so almost certainly, although I could see that there might be some weird thing where Trump just tells him, never tape me, and Cohen actually listens to that. But I'm
it's
not sure.
Possible.
But also,
possibly not.
Yeah, true. And also, quite honestly, I think in Cohen's head is, that probably means I absolutely need to tape everything he says, because one day he'll throw me under the bus and I'll have the tape. So I'm taping them. So I'm sure they're there. I don't think he's that trusting.
It is going to be interesting. Again, if you read the Trump filing, it doesn't make mention of things that specifically. It just talks generally about attorney-client privileged documents and communications. So, and that's obviously smart. They don't know what's there. It's better to neither. And also, from a public relations standpoint, you don't want to point the press towards things either. But that's going to be one interesting piece. There's a hearing at 2. Cohen went out and smoked cigars instead of going to court on Friday, which was a hell of a choice. To be honest with you, it's stupid. The judges know these things. They notice that, and they've got egos too. Comey's on the court now. This is Judge Kimball Wood, who was very well known from her Nannygate escapades in the 90s.
If you let her go, she
she's
wouldn't
a solid
be there.
Judge. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
I said if they let her nomination go, she wouldn't be there to do this to you. It's your own fault.
Well, I think my prediction is they will do what they did with Lynn Stewart. She's going to appoint a special master, probably some magistrate in the court, who will review the information and make initial determinations. I assume they will permit Cohen and Trump to object to the magistrate's special master's determinations. There'll be motion practice about it. But I think they're going to try to put it on a fast track because FBI says, we need this now.
Yeah.
That was another striking thing about the government filing on Friday was they really made a time is of the essence argument on this, which I'm not sure why time is of the essence, but they said it is. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what their argument was, but honestly, well, here's the one thing I have not had an answer for. And I still hang up on it every time, and so I wonder whether this has anything to do with it. The raid, house, office, hotel room.
Regency, yes, hotel room.
Right. So to me, I'm like, the hotel room is where if you're someone, of the mental capacity of and proclivities of Michael Cohen, you say, I'm getting the sense that a raid is coming. Why don't I take everything that I don't want them to find at my home or office and take a hotel room somewhere? And they will never know because they're not the FBI or anything. And I will put all the stuff in a hotel room, and I'm sure, and David Dennison's credit card is paying for it or whatever. And, I have a feeling that he thought that he could actually, spirit away essential and incriminating records by putting them in a hotel room somewhere, and they would never think to get a warrant for his hotel room because how do they know? Because you've been under surveillance for months. They watched you go to a hotel and said, what does he need a hotel in his own neighborhood for?
As fixers go, he's not particularly good at it.
He's never really faced
in some ways
stiff competition before because no one ever gave a crap about this loser developer.
Yeah, I think that's right. In a sense that the people, the type of people who will do what Michael Cohen will do aren't that many. I mean, I'm going to be a snob here. I mean, I don't think he's a first-rate lawyer. So what's his value? It's right. Not his legal skills, right?
It can't be. He wouldn't even change the fake name on the document he used as between a guy who's the president of the United States and somebody else.
Breaking news.
Yes.
3 clients.
Okay. That we know of.
Trump,
yeah.
Brody.
Yeah.
The third legal client directed Mr. Cohen to not reveal the identity publicly.
Oh, really? Did he?
You think?
Mm-hmm. That is very interesting. Okay, fine. Putin, whatever.
I mean, yeah.
That would just be the capper. No, but, it could be anybody. And there's more than 3. And then he'll be in trouble for not revealing that. And he did that because he thought nobody ever has the goods on me. But this afternoon, the FBI will say, we have reason to believe that there's more clients than that.
I'm looking at the letter that his lawyers filed, and it's a law firm called McDermott, Will & Emery, which is a pretty well-known law firm, and big law firm. They say in their first paragraph, we represent blah, blah, blah. The second paragraph is amazing. Mm-hmm. Let me read it to you. As the court is surely aware, there is a growing public debate about whether criminal and congressional investigations by the government are being undertaken impartially, free of any political bias or partisan motivation. It is in this climate that the government executed an unprecedented search warrant, not unprecedented, instead of using its less onerous subpoena power upon the personal attorney of the President of the United States. Okay, so
yes, that's
as
the
of
big
today,
problem.
is he still the personal attorney of the President of the United States? I wish someone would be clear on that. Sarah Sanders didn't answer the question.
Yeah, I was sort of more hung up on the government is doing this to the government. Okay.
I know. Well, that's that. I mean, yes, the Trump partisan bias by the Trump Justice Department.
He should fire everybody. They're full of partisan bias over there. That's the problem. Okay.
But, I mean, I don't know how, this is done for Trump's benefit, clearly, because there's no legal purpose. It's frankly generally turns judges off. off when they hear things like this in filings. I mean, that's you're waging a different kind of war. You're not trying to win. I don't think so. It's just strange to see it as paragraph 2.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take our break in a little bit, but like that music says. But I mean, maybe you want to hold the rest of it for the other side. But it sounds intriguing. It's again, I don't know what motivates it, and it may be just the firm is like, look, man, this is all we have to throw out at the moment. But if it gets too hairy, we're gonna drop this client.
There's more here.
Let's hang on then. And we'll be back in 2 minutes and discuss the rest of it. It sounds good.
Okay.
Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show on Netroots Radio. Armando is still with us. We were just looking at, hot off the presses, the filings from this morning's proceedings regarding the raid on Michael Cohen's home office and office, and hotel room for whatever reason. And so you were just before the break, you were pointing out that I guess all they have at the moment is to say everything is a giant deep state conspiracy against my client and the inherent bias of the government, which is prosecuting or which is attempting to form a case against the chief executive of same, is terrible, and he should probably do something to help himself out, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I don't even know where this is supposed to go. But yeah, their filings, a decent law firm on behalf of Michael Cohen is filing as close as it comes to conspiracy theories as their pleadings here. And what are they hoping to get out of it? Just challenging the warrants?
Trump feeling better or Cohen or both. But it's something that, I don't know. Well, anyway, they did it. I would have had trouble filing something with that in it with my name on it, to be honest with you. I
had to search around a little bit looking for somebody who was willing to sign that one.
Yeah, well, somebody, this is it's one on law firm, so apparently they didn't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I would have had some problems. Anyway, what's interesting is it sort of recounts Michael Cohen's legal career in here.
Okay.
He also names who's representing him now. He has 5 lawyers.
Michael Cohen
representing him. So he's got some guy. He's got McDermott, Will, and Emery for the special counsel investigation and the House of Representatives and Senate inquiries. He's got David Schwartz, who is famous for sparring with Avenatti.
Yes.
And he's used Schwartz in 2 litigations for libel, which include 1 federal and 1 state action. He actually forgets to mention that he's also using Schwartz in the Stormy Daniels matter.
Oh, okay.
So there's an error right there. I said, Oops. I know Schwartz. I think he's even made an appearance in the federal case in Los Angeles. So that's weird.
It'd be amazing if he wasn't officially on record.
They mentioned Brent Blakely of the Blakely Law Group in the Stormy Daniels case. Sirota and Bass of the law firm Cole Schatz for trust and estates and corporate legal advisory issues. That's interesting. I got a case against Cole Schatz.
You're not allowed to comment.
Which is not surprising. It's a big firm.
Okay.
of course, Sherry Dillon of the firm Morgan Lewis. I
Oh.
believe Sherry Dillon was Trump's tax attorney.
Yeah, she was the one that didn't she make the appearance?
The big pile of blank documents.
Yeah, so she's a Cohen lawyer representing Cohen.
Yes. I guess maybe she does tax work for him,
that's possible.
which wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah. Well, who do you use, boss? I'll use the same one. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. Anyways, he's been a lawyer since '91. He's at a firm I hadn't heard of, Estrin and Associates. He said he worked on numerous litigations during this period.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cohen, what did he do? He introduced numerous clients of his own to the firm. Ooh, really? Who are they? Do they have Russian names?
Wait a minute. Clients of his... Wait, how?
Apparently, he got out of law school, but he already had a bunch of clients.
Cohen did.
Cohen.
And he brought them with him somewhere?
Yeah, it's a firm called Estrin and Associates from 1991 to 1995.
Okay, so they're not current clients either. So,
well, the other thing is if the files belong to the firm, he shouldn't have been taking them with him. If he's saying he took them, that's actually another issue for him, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, So I don't know. Is he saying that is that among the things that he's afraid they may find?
Worried about there might being papers of. We do not know whether any of the documents or other privileged materials that Mr. Cohen worked on during this period are among the materials seized by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we do not know if Mr. Cohen improperly took client files that belong to the law firm.
But if you find out, please tell me.
If you find out, I'd love you to know. Just bury that, will you? Anyway, he formed his own firm in '96, which he worked at for until 2006, and his practice included...
Oh, wait, it was just 1 year?
Hundreds of different clients, numerous litigations, real estate transactions, and corporate matters. I assume that's when Trump met him in that period. We do not know whether any of the privileged materials worked on during this period are included. Well, you have to hold files for 7 years. After that, as a lawyer, you're permitted to destroy them.
Okay.
Most people don't destroy them, particularly now it's easier to just make electronic copies of everything, and it's always there. But I don't know if that's what he did. Okay, fair. Then in 2006, he joined the law firm Phillips Nizer. I remember Phillips Nizer. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was one of Trump's main law firms. I remember that.
Okay.
So he probably went there to work for Trump, I believe, most likely.
Maybe.
He represented approximately 15 clients who worked primarily on real estate and corporate matters. Only 15 clients. Believe it or not, that's a small roster of clients. So I assume there's probably 15 Trump LLCs myself.
That could be.
So I think he probably was a Trump lawyer, basically, in that period. But then he quit almost immediately, and that's why I think he only worked for Trump. In the very next year, he went to work for the Trump Organization. As executive vice president and, quote, special counsel to Donald J. Trump. That's not how that works, but okay. This isn't the president naming a personal attorney inside the White House. I mean, a corporation. To observe the corporate forms, you can't do that. Anyway, that's going to be interesting, too.
Yeah, although, I assume that when the time comes, he'll just say, counseled, not attorney to him. I just counseled him, but not in a legal capacity, if necessary.
I think that actually is quite a wiggle there, and that's interesting because there's 10 years of that.
Yeah,
and
but I forget everything that happened.
The Trump organization would have the privilege. I'm not sure Trump himself is necessarily going to be able to assert that part of it.
By the way, now if he...
Again, I'm sure the corporation...
Yeah, if the claim is that he was both an attorney for the Trump organization and personal attorney to Donald J. Trump, which ordinarily certainly in a publicly traded company would never be permitted by anything with an independent board, but a closely held, family business, I guess they could make exceptions for anything. But I'm just thinking about how horrible this looks to also have admitted, and by the way, we share a tax attorney on top of that. So I am the boss's attorney, I am the boss's company's attorney, and the same tax attorney represents both me and the boss personally, and also the Trump organization. And most people would be like, I don't know, I guess you're all going to jail. Hold on.
Yeah, and let me be clear that if he had a standalone law firm representing both would be okay as long as there wasn't a conflict, and you probably would want to develop a conflict check for each particular representation or counsel that you get. But again, that's doing it right, and God knows Michael Cohen almost certainly did not. So there's all Trump organization, Donald Trump stuff for the 10 years. And I think those are going to be kind of sticky issues in terms of who gets to claim the privilege. And then finally, of course, he left after Trump went to the White House. He left the Trump organization and maintained a solo law practice, in which he said he had 10 clients. 7 clients appear to be providing, quote, strategic advice and business consulting. How about that?
He was providing that to them.
Yes, for which privilege would not attach.
Okay. Yeah, if it wasn't a legal advice, I guess.
Yeah, in any event, none of these 7 client files are likely to have any responsive information on the issues sought in attachment A. Oh, really? Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah, again, unless the
we'll
10
see
of them
about
are
if
Trump
that's
LLCs.
Bagging the bribes to get the favors.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's...
Yeah, okay, we'll see about that one. They say, if necessary, we would be willing to provide the names of the business clients if a special master is appointed so the special master can determine responsiveness.
Okay, sure.
All right. Well, that's nice of you. Okay.
Trump Soho 1 LLC, Trump Soho 2 LLC.
I'll put it this way. You don't want to give the names of the business clients, then you're waiving their privilege, so it's not really optional for you. You need to assert it on their behalf, and that means naming them. It's not really optional, so that's almost a silly thing.
Interesting.
But they're waiving the privilege, they say, so I don't know.
All right.
So then we're down to 3 clients. 3. Donald J. Trump.
Right.
Elliot Brody.
Somehow.
And the 3rd legal client directed Mr. Cohen to not reveal the identity publicly. Upon information and belief, the unnamed legal client's matters are responsive to any matter covered by attachment A of the search warrant. They are responsive.
Oh. So this is a person who doesn't want to be named because they're caught up in this. My files are directly bear directly on this investigation, but don't tell anybody who I am.
Yeah, I think that might be his Russian client.
Yeah, there's a Russian name behind that one, I would assume.
There is a Russian name on that one, and they let's
Boris
talk about
Epstein.
whether he has to reveal them to even make an argument here. And I think the argument is his problem more than it is. Now, they have a section in this brief, and if I'm boring people, I apologize, but to me this is kind of interesting. The one unnamed client, we do not believe Mr. Cohen should be asked to reveal the name or can permissibly do so. That's clearly wrong because, as they say in the very next sentence, under Second Circuit law, the identity of a client may be protected from disclosure by the attorney-client privilege in, quote, special circumstances. See, what that's telling you is that the default rule is not privileged, that it's somebody's client. That's part of it that's not privileged.
Okay.
So you've got to make some special circumstances. And they cite a case from 1993 that says, quote, recognizing that client identity is not presently sheltered under the privilege, defense counsel urges the information sought falls into one of the special exceptions to that rule. What those special circumstances are that would protect this information has not been precisely defined.
Yeah, so he'll have an opportunity to claim that...
No. Wait a second. This is somebody wanted to have their client, the government asked, in this case the DEA, apparently asked that someone identify if they are an attorney for somebody or who's their client. And they didn't want to tell.
Right.
That specific piece of information, they said, was a special circumstance that gives them an exception to the rule that it's not privileged. This is the opposite. Cohen wants to assert the attorney-client privilege for this person. There is no way in hell they can withhold that identity if they're going to assert the privilege. The fact is, the privilege doesn't even belong to Cohen. It belongs to the client. He doesn't have standing to even raise it.
Ah, okay.
If they're going to assert attorney-client privilege for Oleg Deripaskov or whatever Russian name you want to put on this, that Russian's got to come up and show up and say, that's my privilege, I'm asserting it.
Yes. Or file something to that effect.
So that doesn't, this is nonsense right here. This part's just nonsense.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
All right. And then they have, this is the crux of their Trump argument, to the extent it bears repeating, federal prosecutors have seized the data and files of the personal attorney of the President of the United States. Now, it doesn't really bear repeating, but okay. This is completely unprecedented. Well, we've never had someone like Trump in office. What do you want us to say? I mean, the president is subject to civil lawsuit. The president has to respond to criminal subpoenas. We've, I think, established pretty clearly in the Supreme Court case law that the president is like another citizen for his personal matters. Mm-hmm. So the president doesn't matter here. In the sense that this did not happen before. We've never had Trump before. So then they say, prior to the execution of the warrants at issue, prosecutors from the Southern District of New York had already intercepted emails from the president's personal lawyer. Correct? They apparently executed the search warrants at issue here only after they searched for private emails between the President of the United States and his personal lawyer and realized that 0 emails were exchanged with President Trump. Yeah. Rather than continue less intrusive investigative means, the USAO took the extraordinary step of raiding several locations and took everything. Yeah, well, that's how search warrants go. Right. This is perhaps the most highly publicized search warrant in history of. This is all pounding the table stuff. I mean, this is all irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess so. They're just repeating it. This is really something because the president is involved. Okay.
Because the president.
It's exciting.
It is paramount that the review of Mr. Cohen's data be handled in such a way as to eliminate as much as possible even the appearance of unfairness. What appearance of unfairness? This is the president's own Justice Department. It's the reverse. Yeah. If they had raided Hillary Clinton, now we have an argument about political vindictiveness and things like that. This is the reverse.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Obviously, I mean, it could be. What they're saying is, well, it's the bias of the deep state, you see. You're like, okay, but
yes, that's exactly what it is. This is a brief written by Alex Jones.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is your deputy attorney general. This is your U.S. attorney for the Southern District. It's your FBI, and I understand that you tweet that you think it's full of dirty, lying thieves all the time, but what you're saying is that there's some independent force prosecuting you, and you wish it wasn't independent and you could direct it.
Finally, they say Mr. Cohen has a duty of loyalty to his clients, which require him not to reveal his clients' identities, except Donald J. Trump, who is disclosed. What? Why didn't he have that same duty to Donald J. Trump?
I don't know. That's
because he goes
extraordinary.
On TV and says he's Donald Trump's lawyer all the time.
I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
It's a very weird thing. So
this has devolved into an embarrassing brief.
What is the name? Who are the attorneys that are listed on it?
There's one attorney who signs it. One.
Who is that? Does it say? Can you read it?
Two attorneys. One, Todd Harrison.
Okay, that doesn't sound
and
Russian.
Stephen Ryan.
All right.
They are in the Washington, D.C. office, from what I can tell, but I could be wrong. Let me double check that. They don't say what office they're in.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they're handling their...
In fact, they have a 212 number, so it's New York. These are
all right. Good. They don't have to be admitted pro hoc vice.
Okay, so at the end of the day, they say appoint a special master. They know after all the pounding of the fist and everything else, and they're relying on Stewart, which is the Lynn Stewart case, for those who don't remember, who ended up going to jail for conspiring with Al-Qaeda. Yeah, it was, and Lynn Stewart was a pretty well-known Well, she was associated with Kunstler for a long time. She did the Larry Davis case,
Okay.
a lot of these police brutality cases. But she got involved in that and apparently ended up sending messages to being sort of a conduit. At least that's what the government alleged. That's what a jury found. So, she ended up in jail. So it's I don't know what all this is. If they, in essence, they want a special master, and I think they're going to get that, they could have written something much less inflammatory. The third is going to have to reveal himself. And in fact, there's an inconsistency here because it says that they only revealed Donald Trump's identity, but that's not true. They said Brody as well.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if it's Felix Sater.
So they're really talking. Yeah, actually, that's very interesting.
That's the reason I can't reveal it. He's a FBI asset.
That's very interesting.
Well, it's something worth thinking about. Oh, I have free advice, Michael.
I just struck by the inconsistency here. They say they've only revealed Trump, but they revealed Brody in the beginning.
It's very hastily drafted, and like Cohen, they answer only one question at a time. Yeah, that's weird. In the time that we have left, I will remind everybody what we found out about Brody over the weekend, and how, on top of things, I guess tomorrow I'll have to review a little bit more about how many other times Brody has made our radar for completely different things. Right now, I'll depend on all of you to remember why and in what context he came up. Tomorrow, I think, we'll remind everybody what those contexts really were, and everyone will say, oh my God, this guy is really literally in the middle of everything.
Yeah, he was trying to get paid a bribe to get a government break on something, is how I first remember him.
Yeah, but he was, this is a guy, as I recall, wasn't he? He was like wrapped up in arranging right at the beginning of the collusion story, he's wrapped up in arranging the Seychelles meeting.
Yes,
he is. And so this guy, over the weekend, what we heard was the shocking story, which all by itself would be an amazing story, which is, remember, he is a Republican National Committee, like National Deputy Finance Chair. Same position, actually, as Michael Cohen. Both of them are Deputy National Finance Chair. So big wig fundraisers. And I guess the position is a little iffy in terms of like actually working at the RNC. It's just, that's the title we give you if you raise lots and lots of money and do stuff for the RNC. What the splashy story over the weekend was that he too, like Donald Trump himself, had an affair with a Playboy model. Donald Trump's was Karen McDougal, was the one that we know about, and there are probably more than that. But he too, said, I'm rich. I will also have an affair with the Playboy model. What is interesting about that affair is, he's an RNC bigwig. He gets the Playboy model pregnant and insists on her having what? What would an RNC official really be in trouble for insisting? Of course, having an abortion. And on top of all that, then he arranges to pay her $1.6 million to keep quiet about it. Now, at this stage, he... And when does this affair occur? I'm looking for a date, and I don't know if I can dig that up. But whatever point this happens, oh, here it is. Shara Beshard is her name. And to be perfectly frank about it, she looks like every other one of them.
Yes.
She looks remarkably like Stormy Daniels, remarkably like every well, what are you going to say? Playboy model. It's a limited range. Anyway, he has an affair with her and decides that it's got to get covered up. And of all the lawyers in America, and remember, Elliot Brody is like a West Coast guy, as I recall. He decides the guy for me here is this obscure lawyer, Michael Cohen, who has no other, clients at this point. But now, of course, he's listed. But I want Michael Cohen to do it. And Michael, what I want you to do is I want you to arrange hush money for a Playboy playmate that I had an affair with and got her pregnant and we got an abortion. And he runs the same play. a same contract that they used with Stormy Daniels. David Dennison is doing the paying. They're paying Essential Consultants, LLC. Obviously, Essential Consultants is a consulting company that helps billionaires cover up affairs with Playboy models and adult movie actresses. That's apparently all they do. And this guy decides that what other involvement is there? And did you hear earlier in the show that we were talking about that, oddly enough, both Karen McDougal and this Playboy model, Shara Bashard, and Stormy Daniels at some point, and the doorman who knows about the alleged sixth Trump child, all managed somehow also to coincidentally be represented in their negotiation of this contract that protects the anonymity of all the parties by the same lawyer by the name of Keith Davidson. He keeps magically getting referred to these people, and obviously, eventually what we'll find out is, he's an associate of Michael Cohen's, and whenever Michael Cohen is tasked with negotiating a contract to cover up an affair for somebody, he says, "Hey, Keith, you should call this person and say, oh, I heard you need legal representation. I'm a lawyer. I can help you." But he's actually working for Michael Cohen and telling you that he doesn't, and then negotiating with Michael Cohen to get you a contract to get you paid to shut up. Now, why, you might have wondered, why would a contract to shut up about something that's got Donald Trump, billionaire, so worried that he feels like he needs to pay you off, as opposed to just saying, I'll just deny it. He's going to pay you off. Why is that, to a billionaire, worth $130,000? Why not $1 million? Why not $10 million? Why isn't it worth more money? And the answer is they keep handing you lawyers that are actually working for them, and they say, this is the best deal I can get. I've tried. This is really, you should take this. This is well worth it, says the lawyer who's actually working for the other side. And person after person after person is signing these contracts saying, well, he's a lawyer. He tells me it's the best I can do. Everybody's getting disbarred here. Everybody gets disbarred for this.
Yeah, that guy, I don't know what the hell his explanation could possibly be. He contacts Cohen instead of Brody. What is that?
It's just,
I've never heard of that. I've heard of lots of crazy things, but that one I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Arguably, you're doing your own client a disservice by, basically making it a lawyer thing before.
Yeah. It's not, and it's not. You're not doing your own client a disservice. You're faking it. You're not. Those people aren't actually Davidson's clients. It reminds me of the movie Joe versus the Volcano. You ever see that one? Where the Tom Hanks character is told that he has a brain cloud and he's a terminal case and he should just throw himself into the volcano. They're going to contract with him for this. And it turns out that the doctor who told him that is a private doctor, doesn't have any other patients other than the billionaire who referred him to that guy and said, tell him he's got a brain cloud. I need somebody to jump into a volcano. This is what's happening here, is this guy keeps showing up at everybody that Donald Trump molests and says, I can help you. I can get you paid. And they hire him as an attorney thinking he's just some attorney, I guess. And he's really been sent there by Michael Cohen so that Michael Cohen doesn't actually have to negotiate with anybody. He simply has, by magic, an attorney that keeps coming to him saying, yes, $100 and something thousand is enough for me.
Yeah.
It's astounding.
Yeah. Who represented the doorman is what I'd like to know.
I think Davidson. That's what I thought I read over the weekend. Every single one of these guys. Yes. I'll have to dig that up and see if,
my God.
If that's the case, like I said.
This is a racket.
Yeah. Yep. Everybody goes away for this one. It's going to be really amazing. I'll have to dig up that reference.
Please do. I hadn't heard the doorman.
But I think that's the case. He represents every single one of them, and I guess basically he should just now this is maybe he's hanging around the Playboy Mansion. That's not a bad deal, right? Hang around there and say, by the way, anybody been molested by any billionaire, but starters Donald Trump, I can get you $100,000. see me after. But yeah, you should hold out for something else. Well, we're going to dig into this more tomorrow. This was a very limited scope show, but man, this is where all the action is today. I told you this had a weird feeling this week. Thanks, Armando. We'll chat further probably tomorrow.
Mission accomplished. Ruined the second hour of your show.
Yeah, well done. Thanks very much.
Okay. Take care.
So, as for news, which we didn't get to, of course, thank God, we're always followed up by Justice Putnam and the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and I might as well get to that right now. Starting off in their Bistro Cafe, I love the name. The motivations behind the totally random Scooter Libby pardon are flashing red signs lighting the road to Russia. How about the rest of the menu? A pair of New Hampshire Little League baseball coaches, conspired to bean their league's lone girl player. Are you kidding? So she would quit. Wow! Arizona State journalism students are trying to stop Sinclair Broadcasting from recruiting there, but the school won't budge. And James Comey deserves the blame for the FBI bombshell about Hillary Clinton's emails, but Jason Chaffetz leaked
From
it first.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show.
With David Waltman.
Wow, beaning a girl baseball player. By the way, in the age of awareness of concussions, okay. Anyway, there's much more, of course, after that. Let's see. Look at this. Court testimony in Japan discloses that TEPCO stopped the construction of a massive seawall protecting the Fukushima reactor before the 2011 tsunami and disaster. Wow, news there, too. Stay tuned.